Howdy, folks, and welcome to Cherrypicked. It's the show where we bounce around some free samples of an album and see what might be worth buying or just listening to. My name is Cary Nightingale, and with me, as always, is Amazon.com. Sit back, relax, and let's top this Sunday. For today's album, we've got The Legend of the River King. It's a 5-track EP by Femme Pendu, which is French, of course, for the hanged woman. Always like to comment on the artwork there. This doesn't look too racy, although she is showing a little bit of shoulder. And she's got a hat, so I'm guessing this might be, like a fedora type hat with a feather in it. This might be kind of an old-fashioned sound. Not sure too much what to expect. Never heard of this artist or this EP, so we're going in with some pretty fresh ears. Let's go ahead and start out with track 1. Here she comes.
Smiling sideways, puffing on a parliament light.
Okay, so we're starting off. I can already tell this sort of has a march or a dirge type feel to it with that 1-2 1-2 type beat. I'm guessing this is sort of a New Orleans jazz march type sound. I'm not too familiar with that as a genre. I found this album, by the way, in the newer release section of the world music albums on Amazon. So I'm expecting maybe something a little bit eclectic. I'm guessing based on the name, La Femme Pendu, we might have a little bit of French singing, but so far it's in English. Beautiful voice. Excellent control too, by the way. So let's continue on with Here She Comes. Let's see what kind of instruments we can make out in here.
Her cries make the thunder, her tears, or they make the flood.
So I think I'm hearing maybe it's definitely a fuzz effect. Far in the left channel, it sounds maybe a little bit left biased, the overall mix right now. It could be a bass playing a little bit higher in its register. It could be just a guitar. But I definitely like that fuzz effect. It's one of my favorite things when I'm playing guitar. So we've got a good sound. The percussion sounds pretty simplistic, as you would expect for a march. It's kind of hard to march down the street with a drum kit, right? So that might be a part of it. Let's skip ahead just a little bit. I did hear earlier in the lyrics, puffing on a parliament light, which I'm not a big fan of talking about specific brands, but it's a lot more poetic to say puffing on a parliament light than it would be to just say smoking a cigarette, especially when it kind of sounds like maybe, the character that's doing that puffing is not necessarily the most positive of influences in the world. But let's skip ahead a little bit here.
Some pain when she thrashes around every.
So sounds good so far. It's the first track, so it's an obvious contender to be cherry-picked. But let's skip ahead just a little bit to track 2, which is Drinking Tour of New Orleans.
All our mistakes, missed my chance at the Roosevelt to put my drink down.
I can't tell if that's a clarinet, sort of a little bit to the left, but we got sort of a similar percussion sound. The voice, again, is such a standout. That's such a beautiful voice that this singer's got. Missed my chance at the Roosevelt, by the way, sounds like a pretty good line. We'll skip ahead just a little bit.
If you know what I mean.
A little bit of tremolo on that electric guitar that's far over on the left. I'm thinking this sounds, I might be going deaf in my right ear, but this sounds a little bit left biased to me.
Put on your khakis, your shirt tucked in, on a drinking tour of New Orleans. Woo.
That's a good hook, drinking tour of New Orleans with that melody behind it. But put on your khakis and shirt tucked in. She might be talking about some of the preppy tourists, the boys from Charleston that are coming down to New Orleans. Let's move on to track 3, which is Seven Sisters.
If you want luck, leave her oysters from the.
Okay, I think that's, I'm trying to count that. I think that's in 3 or maybe 6, but sort of a different feel, maybe a little bit of a waltz feel. I was trying to count so hard, I didn't really pick up on much else. Let's continue.
Or a coffee and a slice of cake.
Nice melodic bass line there, and the rest of the instrumentation sounds very slinky, if that's a good apt descriptor. We'll continue a little bit.
Genuflect and don't ask how.
I'm really digging that bass line. And if you're a regular fan of the show, you probably noticed that I tend to go for songs that have good melodic or bouncy or bubbly bass lines, and this one has certainly got it. So this is appealing. Let's skip ahead just a little bit on Seven Sisters. Let's get to like the 6th or 7th sister out of this.
The shadow's long, you can hear her song. When
I like that harmonic movement.
brings the flood.
Okay, that's interesting. So that's a little bit different than the first 2 tracks, which seemed a little bit more of that. The first one was a little darker, the second one a little bit brighter, but still that New Orleans march sort of sound. Let's move on to track 4, which is Conjuring the River King.
Raconte une histoire, the legend of the River King. Come on.
I've never heard the legend of the River King, so I'm not sure how to conjure him or what happens if you do, but sounds ominous. And it does sound ominous.
Nous sommes rencontrés en avant, mes enfants légendaires. On est.
So that's a little bit French. I heard Mes Enfants Légendaires, which is the legendary children, I think. My French is not even rusty. It's just not good. But let's skip ahead a little bit. I do love French music and the sound of the French language. I don't speak it well.
Vous m'avez demandé de vous enseigner les modes de conjuration. Mais attention.
Love that. It sounds like, I don't think it is. I think it might be a tremolo guitar, but it sounds like an accordion in the mix, and this time a little bit on the right side. I really like the sound of it. But I'm trying to place the voice, and especially singing in French, what that sounds like. And I'm thinking it's Belle du Berry, the singer from Paris Combo, which is probably another jazz, but it's more jazz manouche or gypsy jazz oriented group out of France that I used to really dig and listen to a lot. So I think that's maybe the association I'm getting from this track, especially with the French lyrics. But let's go ahead and move on to track 5, our closer, which is Sunset Limited Slow Train. I never understood putting things in parentheses. If you're going to say something, you don't have to say it parenthetically, although I suppose I do that sometimes. That was an example.
I stayed this far. I was 17. My mama's stolen car had a notebook full of songs about roadkill and cacti.
So this sounds like another one that's probably in 3 or maybe 6. So a little different sound. I could be counting it wrong or kind of missing a beat. A little slower, smokier, piano-based ballad, but it's a good sound. Let's go ahead and skip ahead a little bit. I like that, especially the vocal there. It gives it a little something extra than just slow piano song.
Those adolescent perspectives, there's nothing to see but tumbleweed for 1,500 miles.
And I'm not hearing a bass or the guitars like I was hearing earlier. This is the piano and it's percussion, probably just a snare, and maybe there might be a cymbal there.
The man who got on in Tucson just gave me a
She said something about Tucson. I've been there, which I haven't been to New Orleans, so not much that I can say about it. But always nice to hear a reference about a place that you've either lived in or been to. So that's been The Legend of the River King. I'm going to take a short break and cherry pick one of these tracks to give a TuneScore to. You have about 20 to 30 seconds for an intermission. Go ahead and make a comment down below and let me know which track you think I'm going to cherry pick. And go. Howdy folks, and welcome back. The track that I cherry-picked from The Legend of the River King was track 1, Here She Comes, and I'm really glad that I did, because it had some very interesting elements that we didn't get to hear in just the 30-second long sample on Amazon. So when I listened to the full track, I got a lot more out of it. I rated it at a 7.9 out of 10 on the TuneScore scale. Highlights for me were the performance. It was excellent, really strong performance, and a beautiful voice. I love that voice. The vocal melody, that fuzz guitar, the backing vocals. There are backing vocals that I don't think we heard in the sample, but they are present in the actual track. And the backing vocals are sort of played straight early in the song, and they become progressively spookier with the use of panning effects. Really good production on this. It had a solid dirge groove. Overall, this is not something that I am accustomed to listening to, but I'm glad that I did. Lowlights for me, if any, it starts out with the chorus, even though it's not a short, catchy earworm of a chorus. It's the same length as a verse. And that contributes to a longer than average runtime or track length without really advancing the story or even filling in a lot of details, since you're getting 3 verses and the chorus repeated 4 times. But like I said, the production was excellent. I really enjoyed this track. I am buying it on Amazon and adding it to my collection, but I do want to make the disclaimer, I suppose. This is probably not a track or an album that's going to have broad appeal due to 2 factors. You've got the style, which is that sort of New Orleans dirge, I don't think is exactly on vogue right now. And the lyrical theme, at least in this track, which is basically death is coming to get you. But I sure enjoyed it. And like I said, I'm going to buy it, and I hope to hear more from Femme Pendu in the future. But this has been Cherrypicked. That's been Amazon.com. I've been Cary Nightingale. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay sound.